Hey, Bruiser Buddies, this is Wrestling Nostalgia with Dave Dynasty.
Before we dive into the episode, make sure you hit subscribe on the podcast platform you're listening on. Also, follow me on X at The Dave Dynasty and subscribe on YouTube by looking up Nostalgic Dave Dynasty. You can also buy one of my shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com/The Dave Dynasty. Now, enjoy the show.
Welcome to 1 hour of the toughest, roughest wrestling you'll ever see.
That's right, Dick the Bruiser said it all.
The big question, have you got the endurance? Have you got the brains to get past the excellence of execution?
Just they think they got the answers. I change the questions.
This is Jim Cornette, and the views that I'm about to express are not necessarily those of anybody else but me, but they ought to be, and as a matter of fact, they probably are.
The reason why Axe and myself were put on this earth is to demolish people.
Bobby Heenan, that is a very good-looking sport coat you've got on.
Yeah, and I paid for mine. Mine isn't government issue.
Hello, everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown right along ringside. By golly, we're ready to go with another big week of championship wrestling.
Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Wrestling Nostalgia. I'm your host, Dave Dynasty. Thank you for joining me for yet another episode. And this week, my guest is Joyce Paustian, longtime wrestling fan and photographer. We talk, of course, about the AWA, Nick Bockwinkel, Bobby Heenan, and so much more. It's a great chat. I look forward to you hearing it. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll have my interview with Joyce Paustian. If you like horror movies, be sure to check out Dave Dynasty and Ike Isaacs on the Listen to Their Screams Horror Podcast. It is available on all podcast platforms and on social media at Listen to Screams. That is Listen, the number 2, and Screams. And welcome back to Wrestling Nostalgia. This time I'm being joined by photographer and author of My Ringside Seat to the AWA, Joyce Paustian. Joyce, how are you?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you?
I'm very, very good. So let's get into this. The way one of the first questions I always ask my guests is, tell us about growing up and when did you first discover pro wrestling?
I grew up in an average Midwest home. My parents didn't watch wrestling. I later found out that my grandmother watched wrestling, but I didn't know that at the time. But I started watching at age 11, and I just found it by accident on a black and white TV back when there was only 3 channels, and the first time I watched it, I was hooked.
Yeah, and of course, anybody that knows you or has heard of you knows, right, when you discovered you were in the heart AWA territory.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
I live in Iowa, and that's Davenport is like the only Iowa city that's in the AWA. Most of it was Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and then some of the further west cities. But yeah, I was lucky enough to live in an AWA city, and I got to see a lot of great stars over the years.
Yeah, and you talk in your book, right? There's a chapter, at least a chapter, specifically about Davenport. And attending those cards. So as you started attending these cards, right? And did you, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, in your book you said, right, your mother started taking you to the cards?
Finally, yeah, for my 13th birthday, I begged to go to wrestling, and she finally agreed to take me. And she had a much worse time than I did. I thought it was great, and she thought it was horrible.
Yeah, that's
I'm surprised I was in retrospect. I'm surprised I was ever able to talk her into it. But
yeah,
but then my sister, if I found out, watched wrestling. She was out of that. She was older than me and out of the house by then. But I found out she liked wrestling, and I said, "Oh, would you ever take me to the wrestling?" And she said, "Sure." And then I found out my mom would even pay for both of us to go, so as long as she didn't have to go, so I got to go many more times with my sister.
Yeah, so at that time was Davenport like a monthly town for the AWA?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Okay.
Basically, every 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah. So you're going to these cards, right? First with your mom, then you, like you said, with your sister. What inspired you then at some point to start taking photos as you attended these live events?
Well, at first I was into autographs. I just wanted some remembrance of the night that I was there. I wanted either a program or picture. They really weren't selling pictures at the time at the matches. They sold programs, but I wanted something to remember the night by. And so I would generally get an autograph the first few times I went, but then I thought, we had pretty much second row ringside seats for these matches, and I thought, I could take some just Kodak Instamatic pictures of these at the time, and just to have something to remember it by. And they were nothing to speak about at the time, but I just wanted to be able to look back on and say, oh yeah, that was a great night, or that was a great match, or something. And the Instamatic cameras only held like 12 or 24 exposures at the time, so
yeah, it's funny.
be kind of selective about what you shot.
Yeah, I don't think kids are, I don't want to sound like the old guy, but I don't know that if younger people can relate to what it was like trying to shoot pictures back then.
Yeah, I don't think, I can't imagine what it's like now. To be able to have a camera with you wherever you go, and I have a camera phone, obviously, but it was much more selective, and I didn't, I was not one of those people that only looked through my camera. I was cheering and like any fan, I believed in those days.
Well, yeah, and even if no matter what you did, right, taking pictures, number one, film wasn't exactly cheap. Developing was not exactly cheap, and you didn't know, you didn't get any instant like preview of what you were doing. Right, you were looking and shooting, and you didn't know what you were getting, how it was going to turn out until
I think when I first started taking them, I don't think in our area we didn't even have the 60-minute photo development. You had to put it in an envelope.
I remember that
Kmart or whatever, and send it away for a week, and then find out when you got back that some of your pictures are pretty rotten.
And I remember when places started doing 1 hour photo, it blew my mind. I thought, whoa, we're like space age here. 1 hour, how are you doing that? It's like it was crazy. It's like,
and they had the little drive-up places where you could
the little huts type thing.
Red Fox or something like that.
Little did we know what would come to be. I thought we were so advanced at that time. It's like I thought, man, you can develop film in 1 hour. We peaked. This is where it's it's not going to get any better than this.
Yeah, and then you could go to the mall and watch them come out of the chute and shop around while your photos are developed.
But
it was great. But now you can see it on your screen before you even.
Now you can take 100 times better pictures with your phone, and you can hold that button and take 1,000, pick the best ones.
No more closed eyes or anything.
No, it's so convenient. No more glare, no more the red eye demon look, and with certain guys, it was.
But what? That makes the old photos all that more precious, because we didn't have the easy access to it. In those days, so very few of the old style photos survived of some of the more historic guys. And so those are, whenever I find some pictures of fans that took pictures back then, or paid photographers that took them back then, I'm just amazed, because
definitely
they're very few and far between.
I remember taking pictures of whatever it might be, and you look through it, and if you got a couple pictures out of that roll that turned out really good, you were so proud. You're like, oh, I nailed that shot. I got this one.
Exactly.
It's like, out of 24, I got 3 really good. You thought because a lot of times you didn't even have you didn't have a camera that you could zoom or do any photo.
No, not till I turned about 17 or 18.
And as you grew older,
I had to save up for it, and
as you grew older, right, you started to upgrade equipment.
And they were not cheap at the time either.
Yeah, of course. It's that's what I've always told my kids about. Like we're talking about now because DVD players and which are almost obsolete now, but you can buy a DVD player for nothing. And I'm like, man, I remember my parents buying VCRs, and it was an investment. And it's like I remember getting sat down with my dad and getting the threat of if you mess this up, you're in and everything else. We get such a different world, but. Like I said, as you grew older, right, you upgraded equipment, and then but through this, right, you're going to the shows, you're taking pictures, you're getting more involved, and you started developing friendships, which is really was such a crazy thing back then in wrestling. And we're going to talk. I like to talk about this because it was a little more difficult, in my opinion, at least, and to form friendships through. I mean, I don't want to say difficult, but it's not like you can pick up your phone, go on a social media app, and find someone with a common interest.
Right.
I would, you go to school and I'd have wrestling magazines, and most people would kind of laugh and joke or whatever, but then you'd find that one or two people that had that common interest, and it's like an instant bond. But I want to talk about one person in particular because he's always fascinated me, Mike Grashner. So tell me about meeting Mike.
Well, he was fascinating to me. I didn't know him at all at first, but he always wore a suit to the matches, which made him stand out. And then he was at ringside, and then I had already met some friends there that happened to be in the same row that my sister and I were, who were from Peoria, and they knew him. And I was like, who is that guy that's taking all these great pictures or that has that fancy camera equipment? And they told me oh, that's Mike Grashner. He he lived in the Champaign, Bloomington Normal area, I'm sorry, of Illinois. And he was a professor at the college then, but he took wrestling photos on the side because he fell into it just like everybody else did. He loved it, and he got to know some of the guys, particularly Jim Brunzell and Bob Backlund and Greg Gagne, and they knew he took really good photos, so they gave him access to ringside, and then he would send his film with 35 millimeter film into the magazines, and then also to Greg and Vern in some cases where they would ask him to specifically take pictures at their house or at some particular event they were going to be at. So he was a very trusted figure. And he would go to St. Louis and a lot of times to Chicago, and then he would go to Peoria and go to and Davenport a lot. Those were like the main places he would go. And so I kind of went up to talk to him, and he was very friendly to both me and a couple of other fans that were interested in those things, because we just wanted to know how did you get to be a ringside photographer? And someday I would like to be that. And he was very encouraging. He said, well, just keep taking pictures, and he gave us some tips on how to take good pictures from ringside, and I just said, just keep taking pictures and send them in to the magazines, or and then he would once in a while introduce me to some of his friends. The thing was, I was more of a fan of the heels than of the good guys that he was. So I really didn't care. I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I didn't care about meeting Billy Robinson or the High Flyers or Vern Gagne. I wanted to meet Nick Bockwinkel, and I wanted to meet the Heenan family, and I didn't realize at the time that they had a 24/7 persona to maintain, and they aren't supposed to be hanging around with fans or photographers, So, so it was very difficult to. It had to happen back in the dressing room areas where you could kind of show them some of the pictures and get some autographs or tell them that you wanted to take some pictures and that. And
Yeah. But Mike is always a guy I've tried to connect with so many times over the last few years. And we've exchanged a few emails, even a couple texts. But I don't know. He like seems to disappear. And I know he's
that's
quite,
what I'm afraid of. I haven't been able to contact him either. And I've been tried several times and he hasn't responded. Yeah, I know he's in his later 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I last saw him in it was probably 2023. He was in great shape and he was still driving and still living in Chicago, and we said we'd keep in touch, and then I haven't been able to reach him by phone or email. So I hope he's okay. But
me too. And tell me, what do you know? Because he ended up promoting the local shows in Peoria.
Yeah, that's right. There were some bad dealings with the guy that was doing the Peoria shows, and they were looking for a new promoter there. He got into some financial trouble with betting and things like that. The guy that was previously the promoter there, and so Vern and Greg were looking for somebody new to take over, and they talked to Mike about would he be interested in that, and because like I said, he was a very trusted figure. And that worked out well for me, because he said, well, if I do this and I become promoter down there, I'm no longer going to be able to take pictures in Peoria.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to need somebody to be at ringside to take pictures. And he said, I think by that time, he thought I was qualified enough to do it. So I was like, absolutely, sure. I would love to do that. I was already going to the matches anyway. And so that was my first press card that I got, was from Mike, and was able to sit at ringside, and I was getting great pictures that I never thought I would be able to get before. So
well, and as you're
wonderful,
and as you're growing and developing, right, you're taking these pictures, you're getting more experience, you're getting more opportunities. The opportunity also came up for you to begin driving wrestlers to and from the airport, right?
Right.
How does that's a concept that probably modern fans can't understand. So how does that come up?
That was pretty Mike's fault too. Because I didn't know this, but he told me all about that the AWA had a plane, and that a lot of the guys, at least 7 or 8 of the guys, would come in on this plane right before the matches, and then usually either stay out or overnight and take off the next morning, or take off even that same night, because Davenport generally wasn't a stayover spot.
Mm-hmm.
They like to stay over in the bigger cities like Milwaukee or Chicago or something like that. But a lot of them lived in Minnesota, said they wanted to get back to their families that same night. So I was just fascinated by that. And he said, and they sometimes need rides. So he said, now I pick up Greg and Jim whenever they're here, but you might go out there and see if anybody needs a ride. And as it happened one night, we were at the TV studios, and they asked, and they came out of the TV studio, and they said, anybody here that can take us to the airport? And my friend and I said, we can't. It was Bobby Heenan that asked that, and so there were the 4 of them from the family, Heenan and Duncombe, Lanza, and Bockwinkel, and so they split up between a couple other friends of mine and us, and we got to take Bobby Duncombe and Nick Bockwinkel to the airport, and it only lasted probably about 10 minutes from the TV studios to the airport, but what a thrill!
Sure.
And from that point on, we would go to the airport to see if anybody needed a ride, and then as Nick got to know me better, he was very much both he and Bobby were very much, if they had recognized you and know you, and then they start to trust you more, and they don't want to go with anybody else. So,
well, yeah, and you mentioned it, right? You talked about how you were already a fan of Nick, and you were already a fan club member. Now you're a
fan of Nick, yeah,
and now you're getting a drive. But you mentioned in your book that Nick became very protective of you while you were driving.
He did. Yes, he did. I think because I was a young girl, and I was pretty naive about the things that could have happened, and especially when you're driving in a different town and you don't know the area, and that and it's late at night, and some of the guys are not as well behaved as they should be.
Yep.
But Nick was always a gentleman and always very, very good about looking out for me, and as was Alfred Hayes too. I don't know if I can't remember if I mentioned that in the book, but he mentioned a couple of wrestlers as they would come by, like, I don't think you should go with this person. I won't mention any names, but he did say,
sure. Yeah.
You should not go with this person, or you should not don't be alone with this person because they're not good people. And I appreciate, in retrospect, especially, I appreciate that very much because.
And especially looking back and thinking that's actually, and it's kind of unique, right? I mean, a lot of guys would not have been that.
Yeah, a lot of the guys might, maybe would be looking for something different, and there were, certainly young ladies out there that were looking to strike up a relationship like that, and I was aware of it, but I just kind of tried to ignore those people or not get in their way. Because some of them could be kind of territorial too. Like, what are you doing out here? We're supposed to drive all the guys.
Yeah. Well, you're going to these shows in your area, but you also mentioned in the book that you had an aunt and uncle who lived in Minneapolis.
Right.
And while you mentioned that your aunt didn't understand your fascination with wrestling, she would help you with your fandom, right? Sending you clippings and stuff from the newspaper.
Yes, she did. She was so great. She actually wanted to hear about it. She was so, I'd stay at her house sometimes when I'd go up there for the Minneapolis matches, and I'd get home, after midnight sometimes, and she'd still be up waiting, and she's, well, how was it? Tell me all about it. And then she'd ask. They put a lot of clippings in the Minneapolis newspaper, and there were a lot of stories even at the time.
Yeah,
some of the reporters for the Minneapolis Star Tribune were pretty good friends with Vern Gagne, and they would actually write stories about the wrestlers, which is not very usual for a public newspaper to at that time to write about wrestling, because that was kind of looked down upon.
Yeah, right.
At the time, but yeah, she would send me any stories about wrestling or any stories about or clippings or results. And I collected all that stuff. So she would, every week or so, I would get a bundle of clippings from her in the mail. I loved it.
Yeah, and we were talking about how you were a fan of Nick Bockwinkel, right? You were the Bockwinkel Brigade. You were a member.
Yeah, I would say he was probably my all-time favorite.
Sure. But you talked in your book about how one visit to Minneapolis, you mustered up the courage to call the club president, who's a friend of the show, a friend of mine, Mick Karch.
Yeah.
And tell us about, because Mick is another avid AWA guy. So tell us about doing that, right? This calling Mick, and that meeting Mick for the first time.
Yeah, I was always shy anyway. And I was, Mick and I had only corresponded through mail. Believe it or not, writing letters back and forth, and mostly it was me sending to him, and once in a great while he would write something back, but it was so I had his phone number. Not sure how. He must have given it to me at some point and said, if you're ever in town, give me a call. But I remember sitting at my aunt's phone and looking at the phone for the longest time, like, do I have the courage to call this guy? Because that was a pretty big step for me. And so I called him, and he answered, and I was so scared. I told him I was in town. I was visiting my aunt, and he was super nice, just so gracious and made me feel comfortable. But he he told me that there were going to be tapings that night at the TV studios, and I think it was like a Monday night, and that was one of the nights when they didn't have to be out of town at matches. I believe it or not, even later on they were always taping on a Saturday, but back then they were taping on a Monday or Tuesday night. And so he said, if you have a way to get to the TV studios, I'm sure I have an extra ticket to get you in. And I was just like, are you kidding me? I would love that. And so I said, well, I'll have to see if my parents will take me out there, because I wasn't even driving at that time yet. I was up in Minneapolis with my parents, and they were there to visit my aunt. And so I said, I could, if you want, somebody would take me out to Golden Valley to the WTCN studios, which was a long ways away from my aunt's house. I could go to these TV tapings, and God bless my dad. He said, "Oh, I guess we could do that," And so my uncle showed him where that would be on the map and everything, and took me out there, and oh my gosh, I loved it. It was just, I had never been behind the scenes at a TV studio, and getting to see, it was the matches that I watched from home all the time, and I could see the people in the TV audience at home, and never thought that I would be one of them. We did say we couldn't take pictures with flash. I don't think I even had a camera with me that first time. And of course they were encouraging us to cheer for the good guys and boo the bad guys. But it was pretty neat sitting next to Mick and all his friends there, and I felt like I was pretty much on cloud nine that night.
Yeah.
And then my dad had dropped me off, and then he agreed to pick me up after it was over. And so, and then I met Mick for lunch the next day downtown. So he was working downtown at the time. And so he told me when his lunch hour would be. And so I even got to ride the bus downtown and to meet him. And it seems surreal at this time to remember back on that, but there's a pretty memorable time for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things, right, that come up when you talk about wrestling that, I don't know, maybe a lot of younger people now it doesn't click, right? And one thing is, like we mentioned, the fan clubs. And fan clubs were such an important part in those days. And not only, connecting people or whatever else, but they were run very serious, right? With newsletters, and you had to get permission and different things.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, all major wrestlers had them.
They got publicity in the wrestling magazines, but they had to meet certain criteria. And if they didn't send a bulletin in every now and then, they wouldn't get their name posted, and they had to be a legitimate wannabe fan club. And you're right, they had to get permission. And I remember reading in Mick's bulletin about his experience and asking Nick for permission to run a fan club, and he basically said, sure, live it up, but don't expect any cooperation from me. And, which was typical Nick in the first minute. I think Mick would tell you though that every time he asked Nick for any particular favor, whether it was write a column for the bulletin, or show up at an event or show up at a convention, which was something unusual for most fan clubs, Nick would do it begrudgingly. He'd pretend to not want to do it, but he always showed up, and that was one of the things I came to admire about Nick, is his word was good.
Yeah. And I'm originally from India, and I remember one of the fan clubs I remember. Back in the day, John Lawson ran the Spike Huber, and I remember doing that one and stuff. But I do have to ask you, being a Hoosier myself, about your interactions and memories with two of my favorites, and one of them you brought up. So let's talk about him, Bobby Heenan. So tell me about your. I don't think, again, I never interacted with Bobby, but what people saw on the TV, that humor, that quick wit, that was Bobby all the time, right? He had that quick wit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He could come up with one-liners just as quick as you could imagine. It never stopped. He would. It was almost like he was Don Rickles, if anybody still remembers him.
I do.
He was amazing how he would come up with just quips for the interviews and where he would take it. And he wasn't very kind to some of the wrestlers, but it was always funny.
Yeah, right. But, I've always said, to me, Bobby Heenan is the #1 wrestling personality of all time, because not only he could talk, he had the understanding, but what a lot of people don't. I mean, he was so good in the ring.
He was. I can still see him being tossed across the ring and ending up upside down, and then just running around the ring trying to escape from whoever it was, probably in Bruiser in your area, and
sure,
or somebody like Crusher in our area. So he was an amazing performer.
Absolutely,
and he was a lot of fun to be around. But he was very shy actually in person, and if you didn't know him, he would be very quiet at first. But then once he got to know you, he would start on all the quips and everything.
Yeah.
So I was lucky enough to be around Nick at first, and Nick kind of he didn't really say look out for Bobby, but he just said, just be aware that Bobby will say what's on his mind.
Sure. Yeah.
And Bobby actually showed up at one of our Bockwinkel conventions back in 1975 when Nick, one of the early ones that Nick did, and so he brought Bobby along, and I think Bobby really kind of enjoyed it. He wasn't around fans very much, but he just would joke and laugh with people, and it was a lot of fun to hear his perspective on things. And I think he kind of remembered seeing me there, so that was Nick had given me that from that. So
and then of course the other name I'm going to bring up. Did you ever have any interactions, whatever it might be, with Dick the Bruiser?
Only later on when Mike Gratchner, who we talked about earlier, got the news that they would be changing Peoria over to a WWA city.
Yep, right.
And which was later in, I want to say, the fall of 1980.
Yep.
And that it was Mike told me that it came as a pretty big surprise to him. I don't know that it had been in the works, I guess, behind the scenes for quite some time between Vern and Bruiser, that they would maybe stop sending some of the AWA guys down there. But I guess they didn't tell Mike until the deal was all final, and said, "Oh, by the way, you're gonna now be promoting for Bruiser."
Yeah.
So he was on one of the first cards that they had for that, which was he was in the main event against Baron von Raschke at the time in 1980, and so I only remember him being kind of a very gruff character. Back in the dressing room area, which I was not really. I only went in passing in the hallway. Certainly wasn't in the dressing rooms. I was, but I would see him in passing in the hallway.
Yeah,
and he always took us. I took him as a very serious and gruff character. So. I realized that was toward the end of his career, but
well, I think that was a safe assumption, but I feel like wrestling fans by nature, and at least I know for me, we're collectors. So you've had all these years that you've gone to wrestling, you were shooting wrestling, went to TV tapings, everything else. what types of things have you collected over the years? And do you have maybe a prize piece of your collection that really stands out for you?
Um, I started out collecting autographs, and then I have a lot of the programs. I have to say I didn't initially keep them in as good a condition as I wish I had later kept them
Yeah.
in. But
Yeah.
I read as same way with the wrestling magazines. I scoured them and reread
Yep.
them over and over again because you had to
Yep.
wait till the next month to get the next one. But
Mhm.
so a lot of magazines and programs from over the years, and then I guess the things that I really like best of all are the more unusual things, like if it was something that uh, I I would get personally from one of the wrestlers. Like for instance, I later became more of a fan of Greg and Jim Brunzell, and I was able to obtain both of their ring worn trunks later.
Yeah.
So I have both, and they both signed them for me. And so I don't do a lot of ring worn stuff, but I have that. And then I have a ring worn mask from Dr. X that.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the early on, and then for Nick, I have some of the early the Japan figures that he had, and just some more unusual artifacts that he would have given me. So special letters, I guess, that he eventually wrote to me.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm speaking for myself as a collector, right? The things that I cherish most they're not necessarily what someone would call the rarest, or I don't know about that, the most valuable or what have you. It's just the stuff that is most important to me, right? I mean, I dabbled. I did a little bit of managing and wrestling back in the day, and I worked the show in Chicago that Terry Funk was on, and I had got my picture taken with Terry Funk. In those days, it was unique, right? It's not like now with the camera phone and everything.
Yeah, now anybody.
Yeah, and that photo
can pay to get a photo with anybody.
Sure, that photo will forever be one of my most cherished things, right? Because
sure,
I love Terry Funk, always have loved Terry Funk, and it wasn't just a picture, right? It wasn't like a photo op. We sat there, we chatted for a minute, whatever else, and I got my picture. So it's those things, right? There's no value to that. No one cares about me and Terry Funk in a picture, but it's so valuable to me, right? So important to me. And then I have several things like that, right? It's
absolutely. I totally understand that.
Yeah, just weird things given to me by people that don't have any importance to anybody else, but they do to me.
Yeah,
and it's more about the memories.
Brings back the memories. Of the times that you spent with them.
Yeah,
and whether it's a picture or something they gave you or something they wrote to you. I mean, I don't think fans today can appreciate how important it was when you got a picture with somebody at the time that you weren't paying for it, or you weren't paying for their autograph in a lot of cases or something. But in a lot of times, I think I mentioned in my book that various wrestlers would see some of the work that I did in the ring and ask me for a copy of the picture.
Yeah.
So that meant a lot to me. And then I would usually say, sure, I'd be happy to give you one. And I didn't charge, I certainly never even considered charging them for it. But I said if I do, can I get a picture with you?
And it's,
and they always were, sure, fine. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny because, again, I only had minor involvement in the business, but in those days, right, they would tell you, right, the veterans would tell me, don't be a fan, don't be a mark, right? You don't approach someone and don't want a picture or want their autograph. And so it was like, here I was, I'd be in these places with these people, and here I am, nobody trying to act like I'm a peer of theirs. It was ridiculous. But it's like, all I wanted was like to tell them how important they were to me. But back then, you would have got mocked.
Yeah.
And there's some of these people that I knew for so many years, decades, some of them even decades. And then we got, more modern times, and I would tell them, I'm like, you know what? I've got pictures with them more recently. I'm like, I've known you for all these years, and we've never got a picture together. That's ridiculous to me. And so a lot of, recently I've gotten a lot of pictures with people that I've known for a super long time. but it was so weird. It was I don't know.
I think some of the guys felt that too. Because yeah, you're right. That was kind of the unwritten rule of don't be
Yeah,
acting like you want to get pictures together. But so like in the dressing room, they weren't getting. They probably met somebody that they really were impressed by, but couldn't get a picture of until many years later.
yeah. I
And
mean,
that's what I think. Something like Cauliflower Alley Club or like the Waterloo reunion is really good for, in that they can finally come up to somebody and you see some of the wrestlers come up to another wrestler and say, I always was impressed by you and I'd like to get a picture with you. We never had a picture together, but we worked together all those years. And
yeah,
that's kind of sad that they never
definitely.
had any, but the way Nick explained it to me was, it's a job. It's you
It
don't
was.
go around saying, can I have a picture with you? You're my coworker.
Yeah, I mean, I was professionally around several people that all I would do would look at them and think, man, I watched you, right? I watched you on TV, or I watched this, and all I want to do is come up and tell you how much you meant to me, how appreciative I am, how I would love to have a picture. But it's like I couldn't do that, right? You couldn't, that would. It was so weird. I mean,
I probably got away with it more than most did because I wasn't trying to be behind the scenes or anything.
Yeah,
Or just the photographer, and I did get
it's
to do a lot of photos with the guys.
yeah, it is
Especially
what
if I would give them a photo from the ring. They were, but yeah, I know what you're saying about that.
Yeah, it's just when you cross a
photo
certain line, right? It's
conduct.
just you're on a different side of it, and it's unique, right? Wrestling is a very, very unique world, a very
Yes,
unique
it
business
is. Yes,
in
it is.
so many ways. Some of it's
weird to
perplexing.
see some of them, some of the guys that were acting like a total heel at the matches back then, to
Oh,
now see them at Cauliflower Alley.
yeah.
I marvel at all the people
I've
that met Nick at Cauliflower Alley Club and say, "Oh, he was such a nice guy. What a great guy.
yeah,
Oh, so approachable."
I've
And I think, yeah, well, you wouldn't have said that if you'd have met him back in the 70s and
yeah,
80s.
I've talked to so many people that it's almost like even having a discussion. I've been a little awestruck with them, and then they talk, and it's just like they're just a normal person, right? Just telling me stories. We're having a conversation. I'm like, if you went back and told 13-year-old Dave that you would have this conversation with this person, he wouldn't have believed you. And it's such a fascinating business, and I know people have dissected it. You just can't. People outside of wrestling fandom don't understand it. It's so
Yeah,
unique.
so many things are so much better. I mean, there's so much more accessibility to the guys nowadays, and so
Yeah,
you do get the opportunity to meet your heroes if you're a fan. But for some of us who went through the tough years when that wasn't done, or that was just something we never thought would happen,
absolutely.
it's really weird to
It
see.
is. It is. And being an AWA fan as you were for all those years, and as avid as you were, when it was going into those final years, the AWA was it was very odd in those final years, right? It was less prominent. There
Yeah,
was
so many people had
sporadic,
left. Yeah.
yeah, and with sporadic shows, you didn't know if and when they were going to run something else. But it's for those of us a little more on the outside, right, where that's not our home promotion per se. It's one thing, but what was it like for you, being that you were such a fan of the AWA, been so ingrained in it all those years, going to see it at that kind of what it had become there in the mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
had to be so
in the
different, right?
it was heartbreaking. In the mid 80s, I still felt that they had a chance of competing. You know, I kind of liked it the way it was when it was just the house shows, and you had the standard schedule. But once once cable took over and you had the national tapings and people wanted to see the stars from the other leagues, and some of those bigger stars were very exciting, and I understand it, and I always kind of thought, again, naively, that some of the guys from the AWA would be loyal and stay there rather than, kind of make it a self-fulfilling prophecy that the AWA would go downhill, because the more people that left, the less it was going to be able to survive. But there were a lot of factors at play in that. The money that was so good out east initially, and I know Vern Gagne wasn't the easiest person to work for, but I thought he had a good product back in the day. He maybe wasn't as willing to change to compete, but there were a lot of new guys that came in that I still thought I was excited to see. For instance, they brought in Jimmy Garvin and some of the Freebirds, and trying to think, just Haku at the time, which he came in as Prince Tonga, and Mass Superstar. So and then some of the tag teams that came along were still pretty good. I mean, he had Jannetty and Michaels eventually. Rose and Summers and Sherry Martel, and so they kept having some pretty good talent and competition all through the mid 80s, but like you said, it got harder and harder to find out where the matches were going to be, and fewer cities that they could afford to keep running and paying, and but I kept going I'd like to say I stayed in it till the bitter end. But
well, it's funny, even in those final years, right? As you watch, you think, oh, they got a time slot on ESPN. They got some exposure.
That gave me a big boost of hope when that happened, because I thought it was a very good, well-run show.
Sure. And you look at guys, even in those last years, right? You see like the Destruction Crew come in, and you think, oh, those guys are good. And you would see certain guys, you think, oh, there's a little hope there. Maybe they're just one or two talents away from maybe turning this around. And it just never
quite got there.
Yeah, and so
as soon as anybody got good, they would leave.
And again, you kind of, I guess you would probably have this feeling, right, that it was eventually coming. But what was your reaction when you heard that finally done, the AWA had folded and ceased to exist?
Yeah, I guess I kind of was. I mean, I had seen it coming. One of the hardest things to accept was when Bockwinkel retired in '87, and he had told me he was going to retire, and it made it a little harder for me to want to go to the match. Not that he was on every card that I went to anyway, but and he traveled around so much anyway, I didn't always get to see him. But I to know that he wasn't going to be there made it harder. Although I still loved seeing Kurt Hennig and Scott Hall, and a lot of Barron was still around, and so it was still fun to go, but to drive 4 hours to see one of the cards in Milwaukee, it had to be something pretty darn good. And then a lot of the guys would not show up or something. So it was, I saw the writing on the wall, but I just kept wanting to go. And I was already going to some of the other leagues and I was taking pictures for the NWA and WCW, and I could see the difference, obviously. And but I guess the memories kept me going. It's just that it was still an AWA thing, and I would still see my friends there. But it was kind of a depressing time to go through it. And I guess my reaction was that I knew it was coming, and it couldn't be helped. And just that look back and say, well, we had a really good run.
Sure. And coming out of that, though, did any other kind of local independent promotions kind of rise up locally to help give you a little bit of that fix?
Yeah, some, I think so. There were some, nothing really that I really enjoyed going to. Mike Gretschner got involved in Windy City Wrestling, and they would usually bring in one or two of the big stars, like Brunzell wrestled for him a few times, and Steve Regal, and I think he brought Backlund in once, and Ken Patero would come in for them. So he would usually would have one of the former AWA stars on the matches, and I would go up to Minneapolis sometimes when they had the Eddie Sharkey's promotion up there, the PWA, I believe it's called. And but a lot of the undercard was local matches that I didn't have the same feeling for. I'm not trying to say they weren't good wrestlers, but they weren't AWA quality that I was used to.
Yeah, and and one thing that kind of rose up out of these ashes that helped a lot of former fans was the growth and the rise of conventions, such as the Cauliflower Alley convention, like you mentioned, and some others. Did you find that was a great help for you to kind of reconnect with some of your former friends?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was because there was a part of me that thought in the 90s I'll probably never see any of these guys again. They're going to retire to their homes, and I don't know what they're going to do after wrestling, but I'll probably never see them again, because this was before they started having fan fests where you could go meet the guys and have a chance to get a picture and talk to them and all that. So when I found out about Cauliflower Alley Club in the mid 90s, I thought, wow, that would be so great. And initially, they didn't really allow fans or photographers. You had to be really on the inside of the business to go to those. I think in order to be a non-wrestler, you had to be specially invited to go. And at first, and then they decided, that let's open it up a little more to some other people that worked in the business, and that's when I got able to go in the 90s, and then they expanded it even further to make it more of a fan experience, or available to fans. And there was a lot of controversy over that, in that some wanted to keep it smaller and more of a family type thing, whereas others said, no, let's expand the opportunity. There's fans who want to meet these guys and they want to come in, and let's give them that opportunity, and we can raise some money for the benevolence causes that we do. So it was, I could see the pros and cons of it. So I made it to about 15 or 20 of the CAC events. And then I started going to the Hall of Fame inductions in Waterloo. And it was great to see so many of the local fans again. And they would fly some of the other guys in once in a while, or people like Dick Beyer would come at his own expense and fly in. It was amazing and I didn't get to ever really meet him, I got one autograph from him back in the 1970s, but I never really got to meet or talk to him back then, because he was a man of mystery, type thing.
Sure.
But I became pretty good friends with him through Cauliflower Alley Club, and what a nice man. And and to meet his wife and family is just great. And I tried to never miss those, and it was a great reunion each year. So it was like a light at the end of the tunnel for me.
Yeah, and what we mentioned, pro wrestling it's such a odd, weird, unique business, fandom, everything. And I've always, one thing that I've always tried to, I've tried to comprehend is what is it about pro wrestling that keeps fans for so long, even if it's just fans that have a passion for the past and the memories, the nostalgia. They're still right. They're still lifelong fans, right? They still go to the conventions, the reunions, some local shows, signings. It's like once it's in your blood, it never fully gets out. And I don't. What do you think? What is it about pro wrestling that is so I don't even know the word I'm thinking. Addictive
I
or
think it's
infectious.
just that it's just off the beaten path type thing because you could be a fan of baseball and football and basketball, and it's just it's just statistics and seeing your average game, and
Yeah.
there's fan fests and there's stars that you might like or something, but it's more that's more watching on TV, whereas the wrestling, they really you feel like you know the guys personally, and in many cases you have the opportunity to get to know them personally. And so it's a one-on-one sport, I think, where you just really feel a connection to some of the heroes, or in my case to the
villains,
the not so good heroes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just fun to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. And again, I'm a passionate baseball. I love baseball, and there's lots of things that I'm very passionate about that I really love, but none of them are quite. It's not the same as wrestling, right? It's like I can discuss it in a different way, and I always thought some of it stemmed, depending on where you come from. Like again, there was once upon a time it felt very insider, right? It's like not everybody was a wrestling fan. If you were a wrestling fan, sometimes you got mocked. So you stood together. Yeah. And it's like, it's almost like, and again, there was a time where, I knew something with wrestling maybe wasn't on the up and up, but I would fight someone to defend that it was, even if I had a hunch. It's like, it's so weird. It's so unique. It has a little bit of everything, right? There's athletics, there's soap opera, there's personalities, it touches on so much stuff. It's I don't know, it just hooks you.
And that's one of the weird things about it is, if you had to be careful who you told you were a wrestling fan, because you had to almost brace for that. You like wrestling, don't you know that stuff is all fake? And
absolutely.
You want to say, look, I'm not stupid, but I can imagine. I'm not thinking it's all real, but why can't you let me have my my affection for the sport? And you want to say, I don't care whether it's real or not, but the interesting thing is when you are a fan of that and we're at the wrestling, you don't have to explain that to a fellow fan.
Nope.
And you don't even discuss it. You don't say, hey, did you ever really think that this stuff is real? You just say, isn't this great?
Yeah.
You don't have to explain why you think it's great, because they feel the same thing.
Yeah, it's like I always knew, right? I always knew, right? It wasn't on the up and up, right? You knew that.
Yeah.
But if I would go to school or whatever, and someone would say, "Oh, wrestling's fake," I would argue.
Oh,
I would
absolutely.
be like, "Yes, it is." Even though I knew, I was like, "I don't care. I know because I'm a fan." You can't say that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so there was such a loyalty.
It was kind of the way that it was with the AWA. When people would tell me, would knock the AWA after a while, I'd defend them to the end, and say, look, we're one of the greats. They got a lot of amateur wrestlers going in, and they converted, and it's really athletic, and it's but inside the AWA, we were all saying, wow, this is really going downhill, but but I would defend. You're right. I would defend it to somebody that would knock it.
Yeah,
and same way with just wrestling in general.
Yeah, and the AWA to me is like so many. There's a lot of wrestlers and different things that have fallen victim to the video era, right? If you go out and you look for AWA and you watch, a big chunk of what you see is that mid to late 80s. Right. Some of that's what, if you look on YouTube,
that's all they see. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what they judge the AWA on. Not thinking or looking back when the AWA at one point was probably it was the biggest territory wrestling of all time as far as coverage, square mileage or whatever I'm trying to say. And one of the hottest promotions of all time. And not to mention all the things that, again, in 83, even as late as 83 with Hulk Hogan, AWA was probably the hottest thing in the game.
They were selling out, huge arenas. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and but people don't see that because you go, whatever, 5 years later and it's a different thing. And that's
Yeah.
what they remember because they see that late AW or that late ESPN show. And
Yeah, and
they judge everything.
you probably experienced the same thing with
I do with WWE.
Yeah.
Because everybody sees the 80s stuff, which is more readily available. And they don't remember in the 70s when, I mean, they were drawing 10 to 15,000 every show. And all this and that. And it's, and I don't know. I get defensive,
it's hard to,
but it's like,
hard to have seen both. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's not footage, right? Where you can throw it out there. Not as much footage where you can throw it out there, but it is what it is. Whatever. I know, and I don't care. So,
yeah, look. I mean, we were the lucky ones to have the memories of.
That's right.
Through those early years, and
that's
the
right.
funny thing is, a lot of the guys that went to the WWE and made a lot of money, or made and lost a lot of money over the years. Then. Later, when they come to some of these cauliflower alley club meetings, they say, "Oh, weren't the AWA years the greatest?" You know, that was
sure.
They all have fond memories of looking back on those years and they feel like it's kind of there was something different about those years. There was more of a fun atmosphere to it rather than it's a job and I gotta wonder if I still am employed after this taping because I might have screwed up something that TV didn't like or something. The guys were coming and going so fast out of those areas. It was just, and I couldn't keep up with who was on the rosters each time or not. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I think everybody has a fond remembrance of the AWA when it was in the good years.
Sure. And I mean, I could go off on a whole tangent of, you look at that mid-'80s boom in the WWF and look how many guys they cherry picked from the AWA. You know, I mean, not only Hogan, but David Schultz and Mean Gene, these guys that shaped what WWF became.
Yeah,
they were doing that in the AWA just a year or two before. And I mean that it is what it is, and they didn't acknowledge it, right?
Well, and it was gonna, when cable took over, it was gonna happen eventually.
Of course,
the guys were gonna go where the money was, and
of course,
and
it was inevitable.
They had the nationwide exposure that way, and
that's right.
And, looking back, I can see why so many left, but every time I would go and find out so and so had left. Or this one's left, that one's left. I almost took it personally. Like how could they do that to us?
Yep. I completely understand. But and then we talked about memories and this and that. And so what made you decide to finally write, print, publish a book, My Ringside Seat to the NWA, with all these memories and pictures and everything? What finally spurred you to do that?
I guess seeing a couple of other photographers put that idea in my head, and a lot of the books that I had seen were just kind of like coffee table books or talking about the pictures they took at ringside, and these were much more experienced photographers than I was. But I kind of looked at it as I had a unique story to tell, being a former fan who emerged into that field just by hard work and keeping at it, and I just wanted to tell my story, and I guess what it was during the pandemic I had a lot of time on my hands to kind of organize some photos, and I asked a few people about, do you even think I should attempt a book, and I got pretty good encouragement from it, and I wasn't really thinking it's going to make a lot of money out of it. I just wanted to share my stories and get it down on paper and have somebody understand that this was possible back then.
Yeah, it is. It's a fascinating, right? It's a fascinating slice of what wrestling fandom was like, and how rabid fans, right, if you kept at it, right, you found your way to find a home within wrestling somewhere, right? Find your place, whether it be the fan clubs or as a photographer.
I ended up being really satisfied and happy with what I had achieved. You know, I didn't I didn't want to be like a Steve Taylor that was, you know, taking pictures for the WWE and having to go all over the country. I just wanted to look back on my memories of the AWA guys, and I think and I thought with the nostalgia craze, I thought people would be interested.
Of course.
And it's received a pretty good reception so far. I've been very blessed with some good praises from my book so far, and I feel pretty proud of it.
Yeah, well, you should be. And not only is it a great story, again, it is complemented by lots of great one-of-a-kind pictures that you don't see because they're your pictures, and you don't see them anywhere else. They're not out there. They weren't published. They were. Some of these I'm guessing the first time probably the public's seen them.
Yeah. Some of them I always sent a lot of the pictures in, but I was competing against a lot of photographers back in the day, and they would use mine from time to time. But if they had a better one from a different photographer of a certain star that they wanted to highlight, they would use that one. But
that's right.
Sometimes if they were looking for just a specific star that had not appeared in the big areas, then I would have what they needed, and so that was. But they didn't always give me credit in the magazines, so I was just always thrilled to see one of my pictures. But one of the things I have to say that was a big help to me was Sergeant Slaughter agreeing to write the foreword to my book, and I didn't ask. I asked him if he would give me a blurb for my book. Just to say, you know, that she was a good photographer, and please do yourself a favor and listen to some of her stories and look at her photos. And he ended up writing me pages and pages of stuff to put in there. I said, "This is like a forward." And he said, "Well, if you want to make it a forward, that's fine."
He's such a great ambassador for wrestling, right?
He is.
So many really people know him. Again, I mean, not only from wrestling, but from G.I. Joe and whatever it might be. He's such a great
as I met him, he was Super Destroyer Mark II.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So and again, the book is called My Ringside Seat to the AWA. And Joyce, what's the best way?
And I have my own website, so they can get a hold of me through, or they can take a look at it right through joycepaustian.com.
Okay.
My first and last name together .com.
Okay.
You can take a look at what people are saying. You can read a little bit about the book, and it's got the order by PayPal right on there, and it comes out to you within a week or two's time.
There you go.
So,
all right. Well, I will put
it's been a lot of fun, and I really have enjoyed a lot of the people that hearing their comments and meeting a lot of the people that have bought my book. So
well, I urge everybody to check that out. I will put that link in the show notes. So if you want to go see that, all you got to do is go to the description, click it right there. You go order Joyce's book. I'm assuming, Joyce, if they order it from your website, can they get it personalized?
Absolutely.
There you go. That's the best way to do it, right?
I've done quite a few of those. They make a great gift for any longtime fan that you might want to give them to, or I'd be happy to personalize them for yourself. I even had one person say, "Just don't sign it," but
you never know.
But most people do seem to want it signed. So and every once in a while I do show up at some fan fests, and I get a table at a lot of the local meets. So I'm at Waterloo every year, and I'm at St. Louis almost every year. So I try to announce on Facebook when I'm going to be somewhere, and then you don't have to pay the postage to get the book. But
there you go. Well, if you can't
wait, that much. The postage is only about $6 on top of the very low $20 price of the book.
There you go. I urge you not to wait. Just go to the website, order the book now. But if you would rather wait and meet Joyce personally and get it, go follow her on Facebook and see where she's going to show up. Joyce, I appreciate your time. It's been a long time coming. I feel like this is way overdue for you and I to talk.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. It's been you always have so many great guests on, and
well,
I'm
and
happy to be part of it.
You were yet another, and I appreciate. I love talking memories and stories with wrestlers, fans, anybody alike. Everybody's got a great story if you just talk to them.
Very enjoyable to talk to somebody that was there during the time.
That's absolutely. So we will. Maybe we'll revisit sometime and talk something specific AWA if something comes up.
Sure, happy.
But
to
I know
share my memories anytime.
Available on all streaming platforms. It's professional wrestling's greatest, largest, privately owned wrestling library. All the classic hits, flips, slams, and pins of yesteryear are on one place. It's Ultimate Classic Wrestling. Check out the Nature Boy Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Mr. USA Tony Atlas, Tito Santana, Rick Martel, a who's who of professional wrestling's greatest spotlight stars ever to grace the squared circle, all in one place. Grab the best seat in the house for memories and mayhem on Ultimate Classic Wrestling.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here. Lots of new stuff happening here at WrestleCopia. If you haven't checked out our website at WrestleCopia.com, it's a great way to keep up with the latest episodes of all of your favorite Copia programming, from the Wrestling Memory Grenade to Regional Wrestling with the Territory Talk, the Wrestling Stoop with the legendary Bob Roop, and of course all of those programs also available at your favorite podcast streaming platforms. And if you want to stay up to date with everything going on in the Copia world, all the latest news, random thoughts, fun videos, pictures, and more, make sure to join the more than 33,000 followers over at Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. Don't be left out. And last but definitely not least, it's what keeps the entire machine going. I'm talking about Patreon.com/WrestleCopia. We appreciate your support in helping us pay the bills to keep the WrestleCopia podcast network running and enabling us to continue to bring you all the quality programming that we offer.
All right, and thank you to Joyce for coming on the show and talking to me all about the AWA and fandom in general. It's so much fun. We'll have Joyce back on in the future to talk more. Guys, follow me on social media. I'm on pretty much any platform. Just look up Nostalgic Dave Dynasty and you'll find me. Also, be sure to subscribe to me on YouTube for lots of classic wrestling content, plus all my various podcasts. Do not forget, please subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. And if the option is there, give us a rating and review and help us out in those algorithms. Go check out all the other WrestleCopia Network podcasts. You can find the individual shows on your favorite podcast platforms, or you can visit WrestleCopia.com. And while you're there, make sure you check it out. Become a Patreon. There's so much good stuff there that Ray offers, so go check it out, WrestleCopia.com. And while you're checking things out, check out my friends at the Ultimate Classic Wrestling Library. Visit ClassicWrestling.net to sign up for your account, and then download the app on all of your smart devices. Okay, thank you once again, guys, to Joyce for coming on and doing that interview with me. Thank you to all of you for listening. And remember, until next episode, wherever you go and whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Fans, we brought you All-Star Championship Wrestling. This is Sam Manager thanking you for being with us and saying until next time, so long, everyone.